Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning back in. Today we have another meta matchup for you guys. BY Luffy on the left, piloted by that one please, and Rob Lucci on the right, piloted by Lamb once again. So I think this BY build that Billy's running is actually the Kuzan variant. So I wonder if that will make Lamb's life harder or easier, just because I know that Lucci really struggles with the BY matchup. So first turn here, looks like Billy is just going to drop the Garp down and grab a Luffy to hand. Lamb not finding stage isn't the worst, just because BY Luffy being able to spam Sabos, it's really difficult for the Rob Lucci player to remove his board anyways. So he starts off by swinging 2 5s into lead, forcing the Lucci to take 1 and pitching a Sabo to defend. And with 4 Dawn up, he might just drop a body down, and he does. He actually opts to swing into the Garp here, not wanting to give any life to the BY Luffy just yet. Just because BY Luffy, you really want him to take his own life, so that he has to use resources, or essentially use up his counter in order to set up his plays. But looks like BY Luffy swinging in for 5, and that connects. And now Lucci dropping down the Sabo, being able to filter 2 cards here, could be huge for him. I did see that he picked up a stage, so I wonder if he's gonna decide to keep this or just get rid of it, just because I'm not sure how useful stage really is in this matchup, but we can see if it gets any use here. He swings in 5 at leader, reducing the Luffy down to 4. I don't think it will matter too much, just because he only has 1 Dawn to play with, and there's no way he can remove the Luffy anyways. But he ends up dropping the Spandam and grabbing a Spandine to his hand, and passing turn here. So now BY Luffy dropping down his own Sabo, now protecting that Luffy, and Luffy being essentially an 8k body every turn is just really tough for the Lucci player, just because 8k swings do eat up at least 2 cards out of your hand to counter out. So I think right now the Luffy is just trying to decide what to pitch out of his hand. Ends up pitching another Sabo, setting up for future plays. I do see he has a couple of geckos in hand, so his top end is looking really good right now. It's just a matter of if he can get down to 0 life without being in danger of dying. So he pops the Luffy effect once again, pumping up the Luffy up to 8,000, and then playing down the Hiyori so that he can rearrange his life here. I think he decided to put the 3 brothers back in his life just because he didn't have any Dawn left to make a baby into adult play. He just wanted to make sure that he can get value out of the trigger if Lamb decides to swing in. But the Isho getting a pretty big rip here. It ripped one of the Gecko Morias out of hand, and so that will prevent the Luffy player from recurring too much in the late game. And I think he made the right choice here. So putting the three brothers back in life allows him to use the trigger effect, getting a draw off of it. And he ends up adding the baby Sabo to hand. And Sabo is really the menacing card in this matchup. Being able to Sabo up every turn, protecting your bodies, and also pumping your leader up to either 7 or 9k makes it really hard for Lucci to close out games. So the Luffy player here using the leader ability, dropping the space Luffy and Sabo back in his life, does not look really good for the Lucci player here, just because Sabo coming out protecting his entire board, and the Luffy probably gonna be popping that Rob Lucci on the other side. So Sabo just deciding what to pitch here. I think he wants to save the babies in his hand. He's contemplating either to pitch the 2Ks or the babies, just because the babies are really nice to have in the grave because you can gecko recur them. But if you can save your geckos for another turn of being 9k pumped, then that's a really good option as well. And so he does end up pitching his 2Ks over the babies to ensure that he has enough late game to pressure the Lucci. So swinging in, I believe that was 14 at leader. I think that was a slight misplay on the Luffy side, just because I think it would have been just way more efficient to swing 11-11. Yeah, since the 8k swing makes the Sabo block much more valuable for the Lucci player there. So with the Isho on board, at least Lucci has a 9k body so that he can start pressuring board himself. But the thing about swinging in with your big bodies means that if the Luffy is able to counter out, which, I mean, having 2 blockers on the board, he probably will be able to nullify the swing. Your Isho is now vulnerable for the crackback next turn. So Spandam coming down, being able to grab the Tempest kick, and then here goes the Lucci's gecko play, being able to play down the Rebecca, and the Spandam hoping to find more counters, and then the Rebecca probably adding a 2k counter to hand, and he does, adding that Khalifa back to his hand. And I think that's going to be that. There's no reason to be swinging with your blocker here, and the leader's pumped up to 9, so I don't think he has any valid targets anyways. And here is the Kuzan. I wonder if he's going to end up playing the Kuzan this turn, but I know that Kuzan is really good for giving the Luffy more board presence in the mid to early game. So I really like the tech, just because Kuzan doesn't really hurt the deck if you decide to play that variant. Being able to replace yourself and also threaten removal with your space Luffy is really big. So I think here he's deciding whether he wants to make the Kuzan play and pumping up to 9 with the 2 babies that he left in his hand, or just playing down the gecko. Personally, I would probably just play down the gecko, just because it is safer to have counters in hand if you do need it. And yeah, that's what he ends up doing here. So Gecko Moria bringing out the two babies and overlaying the Hiyori to the trash. Probably gonna bring another Space Luffy Sabo combo. Yep, that comes out there. Space Luffy coming out. Probably just gonna pop the Spandam, or he could honestly just leave him on board to pressure Lamb's next turn, just because Space Luffy I think is such a very versatile card. He can activate main even if he's rested, so next turn he could actually swing in with the Luffy and then use the pop effect to draw a card. That's what I personally would have done in that situation, just because Spandam being only 2k, not a big threat at all on the board. But the draw is nice. I think he was just trying to find more counter in his deck. And swinging 11 into Isho here. And being blocked by the Sabo. So back to Lamb's 10 Dawn turn. I think right now it's not looking good for Lamb. Having the Gecko Resolve on the BY Luffy side is really tough for him. But he uses Tempest Kick. I think he just uses it for the draw, just because everything is Sabo protected. So he won't be able to remove it with his KO effects. One tech card, or I guess two tech cards that I've been seeing Lucci's play is if you see too many BY Luffys at your locals, or if you're going to a regionals, they opt to play the 6-drop Brook or the 5-cost Zombie Luffy, just because those characters can trash bodies on board instead of KOing, and it kind of makes this matchup a little easier for Lucci's. But it is a very niche tech card, really just ensuring you don't get bodied by BY Luffys. But going back to the Luffy's turn here, honestly, it looks like a really easy Gecko play again. I don't see any other good play in his hand, and that's exactly what he does. So bringing out the Gecko and the Sabo and Luffy combo once again. So one thing about the Lucci side was he actually found the Rebecca off of the Sabo draw. So since the Rebecca was not protected by the Sabo effect, he was able to pop her and draw a card. So really good play here. And leader being pumped up to 9k once again. Really hard for Lucci to deal with, especially with the 2 Sabo blockers available. Can't see him being able to push in too heavily with his Gecko and Isho. So I think here he's probably gonna swing in 11 at the Gecko, or the Isho preferably, just because he does have a floating effect where if you attach a Dawn, he minuses everything by 3. But he does end up countering out of it anyways. So here, honestly, really good job to the Lucci side to be able to hold off this long I know that Lucci has a really hard time against BY Luffy just because you're not able to remove their big bodies thanks to the recurring sabos, but Lamb did a good job just trying to get as much counter as possible so he doesn't die too quickly. Hopefully one of these turns the sabos don't resolve and he'll be able to crack back himself. But here Lamb swings in 12 at lead, meaning that Billy would have to commit 2Ks in order to defend himself here. And then does the same with Gecko. Not sure if 12 was right or 11. I think 11 would have been just fine just because you want the Luffy to over counter here. Just because if he swung 11-11, that last swing could have also been 11 off of his leader. So yeah, especially eating the 2 sabo blockers, it doesn't feel good to have to swing minimums after getting blocked out. So here it looks like Gecko going in for 9-9 and gets countered out. So it looks like the Luffy player has the tools to put down another sabo turn. Honestly, this is probably too much for the Lucci to come back from at this point. So he ends up playing the sabo out, probably just looking for as many 2Ks as possible at this point. But he opts to actually only pump to 7. I don't think he had another baby in hand to play out the Luffy there to pump to 9, but being at 7K is probably enough. Let's just see if Lamb is able to close out here. Actually a really close match here, so I'm not sure. I can't count exactly how many is in Luffy's hand, but I think he has 3 2K counters, and that might be enough for him to counter here. So again, a small but big optimization. In this case, it actually would not have mattered because he does have the extra 2K in hand, but he could have swung 11-11-11, which would have forced all 3 cards out of Luffy's hand versus just 2. So yeah, at this point you literally just swing in 9, attach everything on one Gecko, swing in 9. There's just no way for Lamb to counter out here. So yeah, I think that's basically that for the match. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you guys next time.